DNA and genetics, a very complex topic, but after today it won't be so complex. Sam and I will explain how DNA and genetics determine the characteristics of a living thing. In this podcast, the driving question will be if two sets of identical twins get married, will the result be identical children? Basically, if there are two identical twin men and they marry two identical twin women, will the kids of each side be the same?
Okay, so let's first discuss the difference between mitosis and meiosis. Let's start with the definition of meiosis. It is a type of cellular reproduction where the chromosome number is reduced by half through the separation of homologous chromosomes. The result is two haploid cells. Meiosis creates only sex cells for females, egg cells, and males, sperm cells.
Now for the definition of mitosis. Mitosis is a process of asexual reproduction where the cell divides into two identical diploid cells. Mitosis creates anything except for a sex cell.
Mitosis has many functions, and meiosis has a small but significant purpose: assisting sexual reproduction. It is the process that enables children to be different from their parents but still related.
Now let's talk about pedigrees. Pedigrees are charts that scientists use to depict the genealogy of a person and their relatives to track the presence or absence of a phenotype. We can use pedigrees to show how traits are passed down from parents to their children. Pedigrees help people determine which traits come from which parents.
Genotypes are the genetic part of the cell that makes the person look a certain way, and phenotypes are the physical parts of those genotypes. For example, a genotype for freckles on your face is an uppercase F and then a lowercase f, and the phenotype is having freckles on your face. That is called a dominant gene. This gene has a higher probability of being passed down to that person's children. If the genotype was two lowercase f's, then the phenotype would be no freckles, and this is called a recessive gene, meaning that it has a smaller chance of being passed down, and if the other parent has a dominant gene for that phenotype, this phenotype will not be passed down. We can use the short versions of genotypes in Punnett squares to predict the chance of something having specific phenotypes.
Punnett squares are diagrams used by biologists to determine the probability of an offset having a particular genotype. Punnett squares help us determine the characteristics of a living thing because they find the probability of the parents' traits, and this will help us find out where their kids might look like and which the phenotype and genotype they have. Now Sam, are twins' DNA the exact same?
Scientists used to think that, but with new technology, we now know that they may look the exact same on the outside, and their genotype might be the same, but their DNA can be changed or mutated by their environment. For example, their DNA can change if one of the twins ends up crashing their bike, which would result in a scrape or a scar. Now the DNA of one twin has been changed by the environment. Identical twins start out from the same egg, but by the time the twins have been born, the DNA are slightly different.
That's interesting. I always thought the DNA would be the same because they look the same.
Yeah, so basically, DNA is the building block of any living thing, and it's different for everyone. For example, even if you're twins, you have different fingerprints.
But what can all these things that you mentioned earlier, like Punnett squares, pedigrees, genotypes, and phenotypes, have anything to do with identical twin DNA?
Well, they can all help us determine if the twins will be in fact identical. The genotypes and phenotypes of the parents will be passed down to their kids, but with a little twist. That's why you can look alike and be related to your parents, but you still be your own person. So the genotypes and phenotypes that you have are a combination of the ones your parents have. And to answer the question, the identical twins born from both sets of parents will not be the same, because there's a long list and combination of all the genotypes and phenotypes that could differ for both families. Does that answer the question?
I think it does, Sam. Alright everyone, that brings us to the end. Hope we've answered the question, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to our podcast.